While I can't, ever comment on the likelihood of a recession, what I would say is that we know from our research that employees are already feeling financial pain and they want more financial resources from their employer. So in terms of the question around, when should employers begin to address or broaden financial support, I really feel that it is now. I mean, even look at the impact of inflation, that households are paying more on bills, food, gasoline, housing, and more. And from our research, from Gallagher's research, only 2 out of 3 employees rated themselves financially healthy from our 2024 well-being survey, and that was the lowest across all dimensions of well-being. 58% of employees said they live paycheck to paycheck. There were 55% said they were doing worse financially since a year ago. 1 in 3 can't cover a $500 unexpected expense. 24% were unsure if they manage their money well. So I think there are a lot of indicators that show that employees are already facing a great deal of financial stress, even potentially before any sort of, should there be a recession, the impact of a recession. 92% of employees said they felt improving financial well-being should be an employer's top priority across all dimensions of well-being. So it is clear that employees, truly want more financial well-being support. And I think the good news is, again, going back to our research, about 72% of employers said they're likely to address financial well-being in the coming year. When we're speaking to organizations on this very topic, I think, we typically, it really does always kind of start with the data. Both in terms of understanding your population, understanding what you're offering today. Some good steps that I recommend to organizations is first of all, kind of inventory, kind of what are you currently offering today? Even performing a simple analysis can uncover, great resources that maybe you already provide to support or broaden financial support within your population. I mean, I was just talking to an employer recently that was looking to expand and enhance support for elder care, and they didn't even realize their legal plan included some at no additional cost to them. I think another key step always is really mining your data and understanding your population, the demographics of your population. There's lots of great third-party research that can speak to, including some of the findings that from our survey that look at both perspectives of employees as well as employers. But on the employee side, what are the types of resources that employees are seeking? How can you customize those based on your population? There's lots of utilization data that you can begin to look at. The percent that are receiving their company match, the percent of employees that have 401k loans, turnover rate, wage garnishments, stress-related claims. There's EAP data. There's a lot in the data that you offer that begins to shed some light on some stressors within your population. And you can overlay that with third-party data today. Some employers are going so far as to look at de-identified group level data that can get to things like using group credit bureau data to understand, what are top debt metrics within the population, prevalence of things like student loan debt, payment delinquency data. And then I think the final thing I'd recommend is employee listening. That can be focus group surveys, interviews, any data that you capture from employees that begins to get to what are your employees seeking and what are some of the stressors that they're facing in their population. I think that's always a great starting point to build any strategy. Historically, employer programs and policies around kind of financial well-being and what you think of as programs that could potentially help during a recession. Employers in the past have kind of prioritized, longer-term security, and in some cases even define financial well-being as retirement readiness. And so when you talk about something like a recession, the short-term financial stability becomes really, really important. And I think even in the context of with or without a recession, it's really the short-term stability provides a foundation for kind of longer term security. I think we've said before you can't win the long game without a good short game. So I think progressive employers, with or without a recession, but I think it's compounded by a recession, is how do you help employees put more money back in employees' pockets, and help them with some of these, short-term financial pressures. Benefits like financial coaching, emergency savings, personal loan programs, even credit improvement programs, supplemental medical. We know that employees, even coming into this year, we're looking to defer healthcare because of the cost of healthcare and inflation. Student loan, now with the student loan pause expiring, there's some phenomenal guidance tools that can help people either cap their monthly payments or even offer loan forgiveness, with some of the new SAVE program that's out there can help. So I think all of these types of programs, even simple, day-to-day discount, savings on things like discount marketplaces and ways that employees can save money on day-to-day expenses, become really, really valuable for employees. And these are all programs that are out there that can be offered and provide value to employees when they're feeling the financial strain. When you talk about a process, when you talk about steps, I would caveat it by saying it doesn't need to be overly complicated. That in some cases, employers can start simple. Maybe it's just offering one or two programs that could add value right away. So, certainly want to make that point that for some organizations, it doesn't have to be complicated. Some simple steps we've helped companies. Number one is, go through that data analysis process, inventory what programs you have in place. That's a great place to start. Through that process, we've helped organizations demonstrate these programs can be an expense saver, not necessarily an added expense. We can also help them even with a roadmap. What did we see in the data? What do we see in what they're currently offering? Where there may be gaps, and begin to define a kind of simple roadmap. Whether it's helping employees save 1 month in an emergency fund, or paying off bad debt, or covering 3 to 6 months in an emergency fund. We can also look at ways to leverage creative funding, or maybe resource ideas where it doesn't have to break the bank, things that can be offered in a more of a cost neutral strategy for organizations. I think that's always an important part of the process, is identifying resources that can be cost effective for companies, since I know there's always cost pressures both on the employee but as well as the employer. And I'd say, while it's maybe not the final step, a kind of a key consideration when you kind of look at what programs, it always is around communications. The importance of kind of identifying and communicating both what you already offer today, but new programs that you're offering. It really does start with how are you going to drive optimum utilization and engagement. It really doesn't make sense to roll things out and not make employees aware of these programs. When you think about specific results of these programs, I think there's both results at the employee level, and then ultimately, what does that mean to the employer, which can take a bit longer in terms of seeing the kind of the value of that investment. But at the employee level, you kind of break it down in program by program. For example, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau found that financial coaching programs provide significant improvements in financial capability for those that use the service. People that engage with financial coaches saw improvement in money management skills, their saving balances, their debt levels, their credit scores. I was talking to a leading coaching vendor that said within their book of business, 68% of employees that engaged with a financial coach felt more at peace with their finances, that 80% were more likely to change their behaviors. For companies that roll out emergency savings, that we're seeing adoption rates as high as 50%, employees saving over $100 a month, 95% retaining some of those dollars. We know that loan programs can save them on loans and is shown to improve credit scores by over 40 points. Student loan programs have immediate impact when employees can get involved in programs like SAVE. So I think you go down, depending on the program that's offered, the results that you would see. And then ultimately long term, there's been lots of studies done showing the impact on the organization from offering meaningful financial well-being programs, whether it be reduction in absenteeism, higher employee retention, a reduction in things like wage garnishments, savings on healthcare costs for those that engage in financial wellness resources versus those that don't, those that are on track for retirement versus those that are not. So even contributions to HSA programs. So there's lots of benefits at the employer level that do take a bit more time to see the impact of those programs. But I would say, in the short term, focus on the plans that you're offering and look at the impact that you can have just on employees' day-to-day lives. And there's lots of good metrics and reporting that can show that right away that employees will begin to use those programs to make better decisions.